Hey everyone! So NaNoWriMo is approaching. We're down to the last few weeks and we need to get down to the nitty-gritty and finish pre-writing. So I have some tips today on world building. For those of you that are doing a fantasy science fiction type novel, these are tips that will help you build this world you are creating, because it's really good to build the world before you write the story, because then you understand every aspect of the world. I mean, we wouldn't have Harry Potter without Hogwarts and the wizarding world. But to get to that level where everything seems to match up and make sense and be as fantastic as that, you gotta make sure you're building this world the best that you can. Granted, you don't have to put all this information in your novel, and it's actually better not to keep everything in there. If it's a series, you can slowly put it in there, but you don't want to overload the mind. It's mostly just so that you understand how this world works, how it got there, and how it relates to the world we live in. So here are some tips. I'm going to start with the history. You're going to want to talk about the history of this world that you have. You want to know, how long it's been there, how did it get there, what do people think about the past and the history, and what big events help shape the world that is up and running today. Think government almost. So let me take my world, for example, that I'm sort of building. It's nothing too big. But the history of it is that there was a gas war. That was the name of the war. And it was about 70 to 100 years ago. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. During this gas war, instead of releasing bombs, they released this gas around the world because this gas would kill everyone who didn't have the immunization. And what happened was they were trying to eliminate those which weren't what the government considered superior and were what was wrong with the world. So a lot of governments and rich people got this immunization so that the gas wouldn't affect them, so that they'd still have a world. Well, what they hadn't planned on was a few people still survived even after the gas war. They were naturally immune to it. They didn't need the immunization. So that now there were all these survivors and that they hadn't planned on, and those survivors attacked the immunization people. Eventually the immunes start building a city and putting a wall around it so that the rest of the people can't come in, so that they can't be attacked. Well, some of the survivors decide to help. It takes a while because, the immunes don't like the survivors, but the survivors eventually convince them that they're not going to cause them harm, and they help them build the city, and they create the wall, and that's where this novel is based, is in the city that they have created. Alright, the next question, I'm going to skip to size and go back to government. The size is important. How big is the world that you live in? Like, are you building an entire world, or are you just building like a continent in like Lord of the Rings? Or, are you doing a country like Panam? Are you doing a whole other dimension, which would be kind of like Halloween Town? You gotta know that sort of thing. I'm going to focus on North America and a city in it. But you have to also know what kind of focus you're going to have. My focus is going to be on the city, but they do occasionally leave to gather supplies and whatnot. And also you have to know what kind of population size you're going to deal with. If I'm just dealing with the city, I have to know how many people actually live in the city. How many people did they invite in and allow to live with them? Because they actually had to be picky, because a lot of people after the world fell, they went crazy and they were killing other people. So it was kind of like the purge. And it's still dangerous out there, so not a lot of people have survived and made it, and they're careful about who they bring, because they don't want any of those crazies coming in. And the government, you want to consider that. What kind of government is running the world? Is there even a government? Mine, there is a little government running the city, because, they need order. And these are kind of related, but not quite. But, like, what kind of jobs do adults have? And, do kids go to school? Do they help work? Or, that sort of thing. Also, is there any currency? And if so, what's it like? And if there's not, how does that work with getting food and supplies? Next, I'll go on to culture. So you want to know what the culture's like. And what I suggest for this is honestly outline a 24-hour day for a couple of your main characters, just to kind of understand the kind of culture that they live in. What would they wear? Is there art? Is there music? And if so, what kind? And are there books? Are these important to the culture? Is there any kind of religion? What kind of food do they have? And what kind of food are they able to make or get? Next is technology. What kind of technology does the world have? Has it advanced or has it retracted and gone back in time? Like, for example, in my world, they do have some guns, but they don't have a way of making new bullets, so they kind of save those for certain occasions. Usually if someone has to go outside the walls, they'll give them a couple of guns and stuff, but they really try not to use them. Also, for the most part, they stick, with bows and arrows. A little bit of the city does have electricity, but it takes a lot to keep it running. And so not all the city has electricity, and things like running water. Is there running water, plumbing, those kind of things. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is transportation. How do they get around? In my city, they have to walk everywhere or they bike, but there's no train or any kind of transportation like that because they're struggling just to survive. While they do have the city and they have it up and running for the most part, and the kids do go to school and everything, it's still on the mend and they're still trying to figure out how everything works, so they're not as far along enough to have any kind of transportation or technology. They're still trying to get back on their feet after everything that happened. And just consider those questions and kind of answer them so that you understand what kind of world you're dealing with and working with. And by figuring out what kind of world you are building, the better you'll be able to explain it to your audience, and the better they'll be able to actually believe that this kind of world exists. I mean, Harry Potter, the wizarding world seems so realistic because of how much detail goes into it. You kind of almost think that maybe there is a wizarding world out there. I mean, we all hope to someday get that letter from Hogwarts. Unfortunately, I never got it. So just consider those questions, and good luck with pre-writing and finishing up. This is going to be my last NaNoWriMo video, but I will be posting some reviews and working on book stuff the rest of the last few weeks of this month. I've got some horror books I'm going to be talking about, and I'm going to do a pumpkin carving tutorial for book lovers, and I've just got a lot of fun stuff coming your way still the rest of the month. So check it out and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!